Hello and welcome to this week focused on yoga for happiness. So this is the 7th week, unbelievably, of Lift the Spirits, and hopefully tonight when Boris makes his announcement, he's going to announce and outline the roadmap to allow us out of this time. So it seems quite apt that we have happiness for this week. The last few weeks have focused on all different ailments which may have appeared to be paused. I'm back. Bad reception. I hope the information will have given insight and just allowed you to create a little bit of your own toolkit to help you through times that are tough, for instance now. But this week is all about happiness. So today I'm just going to chat a little bit about the science behind yoga, which is fascinating. There is more and more research about how yoga, and when I talk about yoga, I mean specifically within Ashtanga, so within the 8 limbs of yoga. I'm talking about the asanas, the postures, pranayama, the breathwork, and meditation. So there's a lot of evidence around meditation, but you can get the meditation effects through doing asanas and breathwork. So don't overly stress if you're not taking time out to do specific meditation. Anything that allows you to quieten your mind and focus your mind, that is bringing you into a form of meditation. So that could be for you going out for a walk and being very mindful and being very observant and looking outwards. Of course, meditation itself is very inwards focused meditation when you're seated, but that doesn't mean that you can achieve the same effects in different ways. But when it comes to the brain, so I've talked a little bit about this before, but prefrontal cortex, so this is the part of our brain that differentiates us from a lot of other mammals and a lot of other animals. So this is our clever part. Limbic system right back here, this is our ancient part of our brain, which is really important. We need it. But this part of our brain holds something called the amygdala, which is our alarm center. We have 2 of them on each hemisphere. And these amygdalas, if we're exposed to extreme high levels of stress and trauma, so we're talking, big time stress and trauma, then the size of the amygdala can actually grow. And that means that you become a lot more highly vigilant and means that you're a lot more inclined to fall on the fight and flight side of life as opposed to rest and digest. With yoga, what yoga does is it builds connection between this part of our brain, so rational decision-making, problem-solving part of our brain, and our older part of our brain, our limbic system, which is great because it means that this part of our brain helps us to discern. That snake, you've probably read about the snake in the corner in the dark. Someone comes into a room, thinks it's a snake, and they start reacting and getting scared, and their heartbeat increases, they start sweating, but actually it's what is it, a rope? I think it's a rope. So this part of their brain has kicked off before their rational part of their brain has overruled it. So what yoga does is it allows this part of the brain to have more influence and say over this part of the brain. Also, our left prefrontal cortex, as I mentioned in my post, so Dr. Richard Davidson did amazing work around MRI technology to discover and see which part of the brain activates more when you're happy and when you're sad. He did work actually with the Dalai Lama and with Buddhist monks as well to see why Buddhists are so happy all the time. And it is, of course, they do spend a lot of time in mindfulness and meditative behavior. And when you're practicing yoga, your left prefrontal cortex is lighting up more, and it reduces the activity in your right prefrontal cortex, which is pretty awesome. The size of the hippocampus, so going back into the limbic system of the brain. So the hippocampus is really important because it stores and puts appropriate context into memories, and that part of the brain shrinks when you're exposed to a lot of stress because it has a lot of cortisol receptors. The great thing is through yoga, it increases. Also, the posterior cingulate, again, we're going back here, also increases. So that's around self-awareness and sense of self, which we talk about a lot with yoga, how you learn to feel more in control and more in a place of safety. And that is why, because it's affecting the structure of our brain. Also increases the surface area of our brain. and the surface area keeps, it increases the size of our prefrontal cortex, our frontal lobes, which tend to shrink in age. So it keeps us young as well, so happy and young. And there are many, many reasons, but I'm going to do a little sequence and I'm conscious of time. So the last benefit I'm going to talk about today about yoga for happiness is how it helps to regulate the autonomic nervous system and how it helps us to recover more quickly from a place of fight and flight and stress back to a place of rest and digest, which is really important. You may have heard of heart rate variability before, HRV, which is increasingly used to determine the function of someone's nervous system. Heart rate variability looks at our inhale and our exhale and the fluctuation between the two, and a high heart rate variability is a higher fluctuation between the two, and that really shows that also if you have a high heart rate variability, you're able to recover well from stress, and that will mean that you have a healthy vagal tone. So vagal tone and HRV are connected. Vagal tone relates to your vagus nerve, which we've talked about before, which is the wandering nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, and that is responsible for our rest and digest function. It is also responsible for a freeze function that has two branches, the ventral vagus and the dorsal. Ventral is where we want to be, where we're socially engaged, we're happy, we're able to communicate. And what yoga does is it enhances vagal tone and HRV, and it helps us to become more resilient and better at recovery. So that's a lot of information to chuck at you, but essentially yoga is all good. So I'm going to show you a little sequence now that will basically, oh yes, and I've also got my happy leggings on. I thought they were appropriate for today. So this is just a sequence of poses that will just open your heart, make you feel strong, so really make you feel strength and make you feel empowered, but also will work into the vagus nerve. So you can stimulate the vagus nerve through breath. So abdominal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is one of the best ways to do that. Also gentle twists, also humming, also laughing. It's great. We haven't been doing enough of that lately, but we will do, and we will be doing it more throughout the year, I do not doubt. So to begin with, diaphragmatic breathing, bring your hands onto your diaphragm and close your eyes, come into your breath, and just feel the rise and fall of your chest. And what your hands will do is they're creating a reference point to help bring your mind into your body and to help to guide your inhale to a deeper place. And if you stay, not necessarily now because I'm going to be doing a quicker sequence than you would otherwise, but if you stay in a deep inhale and slow deep exhale for a count of, you can maybe start on 4 and then 4 and then build up. See if you can get to 8, 8 and then build back down again. And that will immediately ground you, immediately work into your vagus nerve, massage your abdominal organs, flood your body with oxygen. So yoga, I didn't even talk about serotonin today because I was talking specifically about the brain, but it increases serotonin production, happy hormone. So you can stay in this breath. Initially just find your breath, then come to an equal breath, then build up from 4, 4 to 8, 8, and then back down. And then from here, come into your tabletop, find your alignment, find your lift, Always think of your front body in tabletop being the body that's supporting your back body, not the other way around. So even though it's underneath, it's what's creating your support. Lifting at the sternum, lifting out of the wrists. And then we'll come into your cat and cow, which again is just opening up into the chest. Just dropping the gaze, dropping the belly, lifting. And then from the base of the spine, tucking the tailbone, belly to spine, and opening at the top of the back. If you're late second trimester, third trimester pregnancy, then I'd recommend just doing cat, so coming into the arching of the back, but then just coming through to a flat back. But otherwise, do 5 cycles in your own time, moving with the breath, being very mindful of the spine. And then coming back to neutral. Feel the length in your spine. Then we'll come into downward dog, so tuck the toes under. Coming back and then up, feeling the lift, hinging the hips. Feeling the lift at the base of the spine. Pushing into your hands. So weighting into your hands, but pushing away and into your legs, giving your head a good shake. Walking out the dog, as they call it. So bending and straightening one leg after the other. Good opportunity to take some more deep inhales and then exhale out through the mouth. And then step up. Come into your flat back. And then into your forward fold, which is wonderful. So inversions are wonderful for mental fog. Hydrating the brain, cooling the brain. You can bring your belly onto your thighs. Completely release the top part of your body. Allow your legs to be your roots. Then release the hands. And slowly come up to a standing position. And then we're going to come into Crescent Lunge, which is a really great empowering pose. So you can bring your hands to the mat, step your right leg back, root down into the feet, bounce your hands a little so that you're not collapsing into the hands. And again, you're using the front body, lifting at the sternum. You can even place your fingers at your sternum to lift up, draw your shoulders up and back. Feel the scissor effect between your legs. You root down into the feet and then lift up the arms. You can open them into cactus, which creates a lovely opening of the chest. And then you can bring your hands back down to the mat. Come through a transition. Circle the arms up, overhead. And then back, forward fold, flat back, and then step the left foot back. Again, rooting down into the feet, lifting the front body, bring the arms up overhead or into cactus. And then down. Just step back, come into Camel. So again, as you can see, I'm purposefully doing very heart opening poses. So if you're feeling a bit vulnerable, a bit anxious, I would recommend doing some more grounding poses before you come into this. So maybe looking at the sequence that I did for fear and anxiety, and what did I do? A total mind blank what I did last week, but I think that was also relevant. It'll come back to me. Hormonal balance. That's also quite a good one to look at in grief, because they bring you more into a safe space if you're feeling this is too opening. But if you're feeling a little bit upbeat and you're ready to be open, then this is a great sequence. So Camel, hands at the base of your spine, sacrum onto the top of the glutes. Push out, engage the base of the glutes, bring the elbows in and then open up. So I'm not going to do a deep, you don't need to do a deep bend at all. This is open enough for me. And then release over, and we'll come down into our child's pose. So knees out wide, sit bones, ankles, arms extended out, forehead down. The moment my forehead touches the mat, triggers deep breathing, inhaling and exhaling. You can stay here for a few minutes. Because even in that small sequence, I can feel my heartbeat's gone up. So just allow yourself to ground again. And then you can come back down onto the mat, into your Shavasana. Legs out wide, arms down by your sides. Eyes closed. And let the breath completely relax, be natural. Stay here for 5 minutes, if you can, before rolling onto your right, the fetal position, and pushing up, and finishing in a seated position, hands in prayer. So there you go, that was a accelerated version of a sequence that I would recommend for Yoga for Happiness. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope I didn't bombard you with too many facts and figures, but it's really interesting. If you want to learn any more, then I will be drip feeding my feed with facts and figures and different information, going a bit deeper into the philosophy and the science of yoga. But join me later in the week. So I'm switching it around this week. Our guest speaker wasn't able to do Wednesday, so he's joining us on Thursday. And he's going to be speaking about positivity, positive thoughts around happiness, boosting mood and brain structure. And Wednesday I will be doing then pose. But love you to join me then. But for today, have a great day, and I hope you enjoy doing the sequence.